Listen closely. Loud explosions shake the ground. Tanks speed through the desert, and soldiers shout in the heat of battle. Then the noise fades, and we travel back in time. Two legendary generals stand out in history. One world is at war. But which leader's story will inspire you? Today, we're exploring Erwin Rommel and George Patton, two of World War II's most famous names. Let me share something surprising about them. Rommel, called the Desert Fox, was so smart that he tricked his enemies with fake tanks made of wood. Wooden tanks rolled through the sand, fooling everyone. And Patton? He wrote poetry about war and believed he was a Roman soldier reborn. He sat with a pen, writing words about ancient battles. These men weren't just soldiers. They were thinkers, dreamers, and leaders. Rommel once said, "In a man-to-man fight, the winner is the one with an extra round in his magazine." Patton shared his own thought. "Success is how high you bounce when you hit bottom." Both fought with strength, but their stories are so different. Here's the big question. One became Hitler's favorite general, but later tried to kill him. The other chased glory, but found humility. So, who deserves the title of WWII's greatest general? Let's find out together. We'll start with their greatest moments, the battles that made them legends. Part 1. The highlight reel. Now we step into the action. The greatest moments of Erwin Rommel and George Patton. These are the battles that made them legends. The victories that people still talk about today. First, let's travel to the hot deserts of North Africa in 1942. This is where Rommel showed the world why they called him the Desert Fox. He was leading German and Italian troops against the British, and one place stood in his way: Tobruk. Tobruk was a strong town by the sea, full of enemy soldiers ready to fight. But Rommel had a plan. He didn't just attack with power, he used speed and surprise. His tanks moved fast across the sand, catching the British off guard. They didn't know what was coming until it was too late. Rommel's strategy was brilliant. He knew how to stay resilient, even when things got tough. His cunning mind tricked the enemy again and again. And here's the amazing part. His soldiers were often outnumbered, but he kept their morale high. They believed in him because he fought smart, not hard. That's a phrase to remember. Fight smart, not hard. In June 1942, Tobruk fell to Rommel's forces. The victory shocked everyone. People saw that this man could win against all odds. His tanks rolled in, the enemy surrendered, and the Desert Fox became a name no one could forget. It was a moment of pure triumph. A story of a leader who turned the desert into his playground. Now, let's jump across the world to 1943. to the island of Sicily in Europe. This is where George Patton proved he was a force of nature. The Allies, America, Britain, and others, were fighting to take Sicily from German and Italian hands. Patton was in charge of American troops, and he didn't waste time. He had boldness in his blood and determination in his heart. His goal? Liberate Sicily fast, and he did it in just 48 hours. That's right, 2 days to win a huge battle. His soldiers pushed forward with relentless energy, breaking through enemy lines like a storm. Patton didn't sit back and wait. He led from the front, driving in his jeep, shouting orders, and keeping everyone moving. He wanted a breakthrough, and he got it. Sicily fell, and Patton's name grew even bigger. His legacy started to shine bright. That's another phrase to hold on to. Lead from the front. Patton showed the world what it means to charge toward victory, no matter what stands in your way. His troops loved him for it, even if he was tough. They saw a man who wouldn't stop, a leader who turned speed into success. So, we've seen two incredible moments. Rommel took Tobruk with clever tricks and fast moves. Patton freed Sicily with power and fearless action. But here's where it gets even more exciting. These two generals weren't just fighting far apart. They were on a path to meet. Their stories crashed together in one brutal battle later in the war. Rommel mastered deserts, turning sand into his weapon. Patton conquered cities, rolling over mountains and towns like thunder. Both were unstoppable in their own way. Rommel's tanks danced through Africa, confusing everyone in their path. Patton's army smashed through Europe, leaving enemies running. One used his brain to win, the other used his heart and guts. Who was better? That's the question burning in our minds. Their victories were different, but both showed what a great leader can do. Rommel's cunning gave him control of the desert. Patton's relentless drive gave him control of the battlefield. And yet, they weren't perfect. Rommel faced bigger armies, and still won. Patton moved so fast he sometimes left his own supplies behind. These triumphs tell us so much about them. How they thought, how they fought, and how they inspired their men. Let's think about Tobruk again for a moment. Rommel didn't have the most soldiers or the best weapons. He was outnumbered, but he didn't care. He looked at the map, planned his attack, and moved like lightning. His strategy was to confuse the enemy, to make them think he was stronger than he really was. And it worked. The British thought they were safe in Tobruk, but Rommel proved them wrong. His soldiers trusted him because he was smart. He didn't just shout orders. He showed them how to win. That's what made his morale so strong. Even when the sun burned hot and the sand slowed them down, they kept going. Rommel's victory at Tobruk wasn't just about tanks or guns. It was about a leader who knew how to fight smart, not hard. That phrase sticks with us because it's so true. Rommel didn't need to be the loudest or the strongest. He just needed to be the cleverest. Now back to Patton in Sicily. This was a different kind of fight. Patton didn't hide or trick anyone. He came straight at the enemy with everything he had. His boldness was his power. He told his soldiers to move fast, to hit hard, and to never look back. In 48 hours, he turned a tough battle into a quick win. That's what relentless means. Never stopping, never giving up. Patton drove his jeep right into the action, showing his men he wasn't afraid. He wanted them to feel his determination, to know they could do anything if they followed him. And they did. Sicily was a big island with mountains and rough roads, but Patton didn't let that slow him down. He broke through enemy lines and kept pushing. His legacy grew because he led from the front. That's what made him special. He wasn't just a general in an office. He was a soldier with his troops, sharing the danger and the glory. Here's the cliffhanger to keep you hooked. Rommel and Patton were masters of war, but their paths crossed in a fight that tested them both. Rommel ruled the deserts with his cunning mind. Patton stormed through cities with his fearless heart. One day, their armies faced each other, and the clash was brutal. Who came out on top? We'll find out more as we go. But first, let's step back. How did these two men become legends? One started as a teacher's son in a small town. The other was a boy who struggled to read but dreamed of greatness. Their stories are full of surprises, and they're next. Get ready to hear how a quiet kid and a dyslexic dreamer turned into war heroes who changed history. Part 2. Rommel's background. Now we turn the page to Erwin Rommel's life, how he went from a quiet boy to a war legend and faced a dramatic end. His story starts in a small town in Germany, where he was born in 1891. His father was a teacher, not a soldier, so young Erwin grew up in a simple home. No one thought this boy would become famous, but even as a child, he loved adventure. He built gliders with his friends, little flying machines made of wood, and dreamed of big things. Then, when he was old enough, he joined the army. This was before World War I, and Rommel was just a young man ready to learn. That war changed everything for him. He fought in the mountains and forests, leading small groups of soldiers. His tactics were smart. He moved fast, set up ambushes, and surprised the enemy. An ambush is when you hide and attack when they least expect it. Rommel was so good at this that he won medals for bravery. By the end of World War I, he was a hero. People noticed his talent, and his name started to grow. Years passed, and then came World War II. Rommel's life took a huge turn. Adolf Hitler, the leader of Germany, saw how clever Rommel was. Hitler gave him a big job: lead the tanks in North Africa. This was in 1941, and Rommel jumped at the chance. He went from a teacher's son to Hitler's favorite general. His promotion came fast because he won battles others thought were impossible. In the desert, he used his old tricks: speed, surprise, and ambushes. Soldiers called him the Desert Fox because he was like a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's a phrase that means he looked harmless, but was very dangerous. His enemies never knew what he would do next. He led his men through sandstorms and heat, sharing their hardships. They respected him because he wasn't just a boss. He was one of them. For a while, it seemed like Rommel could do no wrong. Hitler trusted him, and his victories made Germany proud. But not everything was as it seemed. Something dark was coming. Here's where the story twists. Rommel started to see Hitler differently. At first, he followed orders and fought for Germany. But by 1944, he wasn't so sure. Hitler was losing the war, and many people were dying. Some German officers wanted to stop him. They planned to kill Hitler and end the fighting. Rommel knew about this plan. He didn't join it directly, but he didn't stop it either. He was caught between two fires, another phrase that means he had to choose between two bad options: loyalty to Hitler or betrayal for a better future. On July 20th, 1944, a bomb went off near Hitler. It was part of the assassination plot, but Hitler survived. The plan failed, and Rommel's name came up. Hitler was furious. He couldn't believe his favorite general might be against him. Rommel said he was innocent, but the truth didn't matter. Hitler wanted him gone. What happened next was tragic. Rommel was at home with his family when two officers arrived. They gave him a terrible choice: take poison and die quietly, or face a public trial that would hurt his wife and son. Rommel chose the poison. On October 14, 1944, he said goodbye to his family, got into a car with the officers, and took the pill. He died that day, but the world didn't know the full story at first. Germany said he died from war injuries, not from betrayal. It was a lie to protect Hitler's image. Rommel's death was forced, but it wasn't the end of his story. Later, people learned the truth. They saw him as more than just a general. He became a symbol of someone who stood up to a bad leader, even if it cost him everything. His life was full of surprises, from a small-town boy to a war hero, to a man caught in a dangerous game. Let's go back to the start for a moment. Rommel wasn't born to be a soldier. His father wanted him to be a teacher, like him. But Rommel had other ideas. He loved machines and action. Those gliders he built as a boy showed he was clever with his hands and his mind. When he joined the army, he wasn't the loudest or the strongest, but he was the smartest. In World War I, he led small teams through tough places, mountains in Italy, forests in France. He didn't just attack head-on. He planned ambushes that caught enemies by surprise. One time, he captured hundreds of soldiers with just a few men. That's how good his tactics were. He earned a big medal called the Pour le Mérite, Germany's highest honor back then. People saw he was special, even as a young officer. That war built the man who would later rule the desert. When World War II started, Rommel was ready for more. Hitler gave him tanks, and Rommel turned them into a weapon no one could stop. In France in 1940, he moved so fast that the enemy couldn't keep up. Then came North Africa, where he really shined. He fought the British in places like Tobruk and El Alamein. His ambushes and quick attacks made him famous. But he wasn't perfect. Sometimes he moved too fast and left his supplies behind. His soldiers got tired, and the enemy got stronger. Still, he kept going. He was loyal to his men and his country, at least at first. That loyalty made him Hitler's favorite. But as the war went on, he saw the cost. Cities were burning, people were suffering, and Hitler wouldn't listen. Rommel started to question everything. That's when the 1944 plot happened. Rommel wasn't the leader of it, but he knew the men who were. They wanted to save Germany by stopping Hitler. Rommel agreed the war was lost, but he didn't plant the bomb himself. Some say he wanted peace, not murder. Others say he was too afraid to act. Either way, he was caught between two fires: stay loyal and watch Germany fall, or betray Hitler and risk everything. When the bomb failed, Hitler turned on him. Rommel's end was sad, but it showed his strength. He chose to protect his family, even if it meant dying. His wife and son lived on, and his name didn't fade. Today, people see him as a hero who tried to do right in a wrong time. Rommel's story is wild. From a teacher's son to a war star, to a man forced to leave it all behind, he lived a life of tactics, loyalty, and tough choices. Next, we'll see how a very different man, George Patton, rose from his own struggles to become a legend. Get ready for a tale of a boy who couldn't read well but aimed for the stars. Part 3. Patton's Background. Now we shift to a different man, a different life. George S. Patton, a name that echoes through history. His journey is full of surprises, from a struggling boy to a bold general known as Old Blood and Guts. Patton was born in 1885 in California, USA, to a family with money and a love for war stories. His grandfather fought in the American Civil War, and young George grew up hearing tales of bravery. But there was a problem. He couldn't read well. He had dyslexia, which made words twist and turn on the page. School was hard, and he felt left behind. Still, Patton had ambition burning inside him. He didn't let his struggles stop him. He worked extra hard, listening to books read aloud by his family, and dreamed of being a soldier. That's a phrase to remember. Aiming for the stars. Even as a kid, he wanted to reach high, no matter the obstacles. Patton's big break came when he joined the Army. He went to West Point, the famous military school in America. It wasn't easy. His dyslexia made studying tough, but he had discipline. He pushed himself every day, training his body and mind. In 1912, he got a chance to shine. He competed in the Olympics in Stockholm, Sweden. It was the modern pentathlon, a sport with 5 events: shooting, swimming, fencing, riding horses, and running. Patton loved it because it tested everything: strength, skill, and courage. He finished 5th in the world, not first. But he proved he could do anything he set his mind to. Those Olympic days showed the world a man who wouldn't give up. After that, he went back to the Army, ready for more. His reputation started to grow, and he was just getting started. Then came World War I. Patton didn't want to sit still. He wanted action. He joined the new tank units, big machines that were changing war. In 1918, he fought in France, leading tanks into battle. He was brave and loud, charging at the enemy even when bullets flew. His soldiers saw him stand tall, and they followed. He got hurt once, shot in the leg, but he kept going until he couldn't. That war made him a hero, and he earned medals for his courage. People started calling him Old Blood and Guts because he loved the fight and wasn't afraid to get dirty. Another phrase fits here: no guts, no glory. Patton believed you had to take risks to win big, and he lived that every day. When World War I ended, he didn't stop. He kept training, planning, and waiting for the next chance to lead. World War II was when Patton became a legend. In 1942, he went to North Africa to fight Rommel's forces. He didn't win every battle there, but he learned fast. Then, in 1943, he took charge in Sicily. We talked about this before. He liberated the island in just 48 hours. His tanks and soldiers moved like lightning, and the enemy couldn't keep up. After Sicily, he led the Third Army in Europe. In 1944, he raced across France, freeing towns and pushing the Germans back. He was relentless, always moving forward. But Patton wasn't perfect. He caused controversy too. Once, he slapped a soldier who was scared and tired, saying he wasn't brave enough. People were angry, and he got in trouble. Patton said sorry, but it showed his tough side. He demanded discipline from everyone, especially himself. His reputation was big. Some loved him, some didn't. But no one could ignore him. Patton's greatest moment came in late 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans attacked hard in the cold winter, trapping American soldiers. Patton turned his army around fast and marched through snow to save them. It was a huge sacrifice. His men were tired, the weather was awful, but he didn't care. He got there in time, broke the enemy's lines, and won. That battle made him a star. He kept fighting until the war ended in 1945. Germany surrendered, and Patton was on top. He had led his army across rivers, forests, and cities, always aiming for the stars. His soldiers called him Old Blood and Guts, with pride. He was loud, he was bold, and he was unforgettable. But the story doesn't end with victory. Something sad was waiting just around the corner. After the war, Patton didn't get the quiet life he might have wanted. In December 1945, he was in Germany, still working with the army. One day, he was riding in a car when it crashed into a truck. It wasn't a big accident, but Patton got hurt badly. His neck broke. He went to a hospital, and for a while, it seemed like he might live. But 12 days later, on December 21st, 1945, he died. He was 60 years old. The man who survived bullets and battles was gone because of a simple crash. His death was a tragedy, a sudden end to a life full of fire. They buried him in Luxembourg, near soldiers who died in the Battle of the Bulge. His grave is simple, but it's a place people visit to remember him. Patton's story didn't end with glory on the battlefield. It ended quietly, far from the noise of war. Let's step back to his early days again. That boy with dyslexia didn't know he'd become a general. He struggled with letters and words, but he found his strength elsewhere. Horses were his first love. He rode them fast and free. At West Point, he trained until his hands bled, making himself tough. The Olympics in 1912 were his first taste of the world's eyes on him. He didn't win gold, but he stood with the best. In World War I, he took to tanks like they were made for him. He shouted orders, drove into danger, and came out stronger. By World War II, he was ready to lead thousands. Sicily, France, the Bulge. He left his mark everywhere. His ambition never faded, even when he made mistakes. That slap in Sicily, it showed he could be hard, too hard. But he learned, and he kept going. His soldiers forgave him because he gave them victory. Patton's life was a mix of highs and lows. He aimed for the stars and often reached them. He lived for no guts, no glory, pushing himself and his men to the limit. His death was a shock, but his name didn't fade. Movies, books, and stories keep him alive. People see him as a warrior who never backed down. A man who turned a boy's dreams into a soldier's legacy. From a kid who couldn't read to an Olympic athlete to a general who won wars, Patton's path was wild. Next, we'll look at how he and Rommel led their men, their styles, their words, and their hearts. Get ready for more. Part 4. Leadership Style. We've seen their battles and their backgrounds, but now let's talk about how Erwin Rommel and George Patton led their men. Leadership isn't just about winning. It's about how you inspire people, how you make them follow you through danger. These two generals were so different, yet both were amazing in their own way. First, let's go back to Rommel in the deserts of North Africa. He wasn't the kind of leader who stayed far away, safe in an office. No, Rommel led from the front. He drove his car through the sand, right where the fighting was. He wanted to see the battle with his own eyes, to know exactly what was happening. His soldiers saw him there, covered in dust, eating the same plain food they did. He shared their hardships, hot days, cold nights, and long marches. That made him special. His men felt his empathy. Empathy means understanding how others feel, and Rommel had it. He knew war was tough, and he didn't hide from it. A good phrase for him is, walk the walk. It means he didn't just talk about being brave, he showed it every day. Rommel was also decisive. When he made a plan, he stuck to it. He moved fast, telling his troops what to do without waiting. His soldiers respected him because he acted like one of them. He wore the same uniform, slept in tents, and even helped fix tanks when they broke. In the desert, where Jongens, things broke fast too. They didn't have enough men or supplies sometimes, but Rommel kept them going. He knew how to keep their spirits up. He'd talk to them, short and clear, telling them they could win. That respect went both ways. They trusted him because he was there, leading by example. Rommel's style wasn't about big speeches or fancy words. It was about action. Another phrase fits him. Actions speak louder than words. He didn't need to shout to prove he was in charge. His choices and his presence did that. His men followed because they saw him risk his life with them, day after day. Now let's switch to George Patton, a leader with a totally different energy. Patton didn't just lead from the front. He charged into the fight like a storm. In Sicily, France, everywhere, he was right there, driving his jeep, standing tall in his shiny helmet. But his style wasn't quiet like Rommel's. Patton was loud, bold, and full of fire. He demanded perfection from his soldiers. Every uniform had to be right. Every move had to be fast. He was strict, sometimes too strict. If a soldier messed up, Patton would yell, or worse. Remember that time he slapped a scared soldier in Sicily? It showed how tough he could be. He wanted his men to be the best, and he didn't accept excuses. But here's the thing. They still loved him. Why? Because he was charismatic. That means he had a special charm, a way of making people believe in him. Patton's big weapon was his speeches. He didn't just give orders, he inspired. Before a battle, he'd stand up, his voice booming, and tell his men they were unstoppable. He'd say things like, "We're going to rip their guts out," or, "No one ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other guy die for his." His words lit a fire in their hearts. Soldiers felt stronger just hearing him. That's what made him different from Rommel. While Rommel showed respect through quiet strength, Patton earned it with energy and power. He led from the front too, but in a flashy way. Polished boots, pistols on his hips, always ready to be seen. Walk the walk fits him too, but his walk was loud and proud. His men followed because he made them feel like heroes, even when he pushed them hard. Let's think about Rommel's way a bit more. In North Africa, he didn't have the best tanks or the most men. Supplies were low, and the desert was cruel, but he kept his soldiers going. He'd jump out of his car, grab a shovel, and dig with them when a tank got stuck. Or he'd sit by a fire at night talking about the next move. He wasn't soft. He could be sharp and quick, but he cared. His empathy wasn't fake. Once, when a soldier died, Rommel wrote a letter to the man's family himself. That's the kind of leader he was, decisive when it mattered, but human too. His respect came from being there, sweating and fighting alongside his troops. He didn't need to scream to prove he was in charge. His actions spoke louder than words every time. Patton, though, loved the spotlight. In Europe, racing across France with his Third Army, he was a showman. He'd stand on a tank, pointing the way, making sure everyone saw him. He was strict because he believed it won wars. Soldiers had to march perfectly, even when tired. He'd shout, "I want speed!" and they'd move faster. But those speeches, they were gold. Before the Battle of the Bulge, he told his men, "We're going to save our boys, and we're going to win." They cheered, ready to march through snow and ice. His charisma pulled them along. Sure, he made enemies. Some called him cruel. But his men respected him because he never hid. He faced the same dangers they did, and that mattered. Actions speak louder than words worked for him too. He backed up his big talk with big moves. Rommel's leadership was steady, like a rock. He didn't waste energy on noise. In Tobruk, when he won with speed and surprise, his men followed because they trusted his brain. He'd say, "Move now," and they'd go, "No questions." His empathy kept them strong when food ran out or water was scarce. He'd share his last bread with the soldier, showing he was one of them. That's why they fought so hard for him. Patton's leadership was a storm, wild and unstoppable. In Sicily, he pushed his men to win in 48 hours, and they did. He'd roar, "Keep going," and they'd find strength they didn't know they had. His charisma made them feel bigger than life. Both were decisive, picking their moments and striking fast. But Rommel did it with calm, Patton with thunder. Think about their soldiers for a second. Rommel's men were often tired, hungry, far from home. Yet they stuck with him. Why? Because he led from the front, not from a map room. He'd scout the desert himself, risking bombs and bullets. That built respect. Patton's men were different, well-fed, well-armed, but scared of him. He'd snap, "No mistakes," and they'd jump. His strict rules kept them sharp, but his speeches kept them alive. Once, in France, he told them, "We're the best, and we'll prove it." They cheered and charged. Both generals showed walk the walk in their own style. One quiet and steady, one loud and fierce. Their men followed because they saw the real thing, not just talk. So Rommel and Patton led from the front, but their hearts were different. Rommel's empathy and calm won loyalty. Patton's charisma and fire won devotion. Respect tied them together. They earned it by being there, by acting when it counted. Next, we'll see how their strategies matched their styles. Rommel's tricks, Patton's charges. It's going to be wild. Part 5. Battle Strategies. Now we're getting to the heart of what made Erwin Rommel and George Patton so famous. Their battle strategies. These weren't just men who shouted orders. They were masters of war, each with a special way of winning. Let's start with Rommel in the deserts of North Africa. His strategy was all about deception, speed, and messing with the enemy's head. Deception means tricking people, and Rommel was the best at it. Remember those fake wooden tanks we talked about? He used them to fool the British into thinking he had more power than he did. His real tanks would move fast, lightning fast, across the sand, hitting where the enemy didn't expect. That's what maneuver means, moving smart to get the advantage. Rommel loved speed because it kept his enemies confused. One minute they'd think he was far away, and the next his tanks were right there, attacking. A great phrase for him is, "Strike while the iron is hot." It means hit hard when the moment is right, and Rommel always knew when that moment was. But it wasn't just about moving fast. Rommel used psychological warfare too, scaring the enemy with his tricks. In 1941, at a place called Machili, he sent dust clouds into the air with his trucks, making the British think a huge army was coming. They ran before the fight even started. That's a bluff, pretending you're stronger than you are. And it worked. He kept his momentum going, never letting the enemy rest. Momentum is like a wave that keeps rolling, and Rommel rode it well. Even when he was short on fuel or food, he found ways to keep moving. Logistics, like getting supplies, were tough in the desert, but he improvised. Improvisation means thinking fast and using what you have. Once, when his tanks ran low on gas, he captured enemy fuel and kept going. Rommel's strategy was like a fox, sneaky, quick, and always one step ahead. Now, let's jump to Patton and his way of fighting. Patton's strategy was the opposite of sneaky. It was loud, bold, and straight ahead. He loved aggressive charges, hitting the enemy with everything he had. In Sicily in 1943, he didn't wait or hide. He sent his tanks and soldiers rushing forward, breaking through lines like a hammer. That's what maneuver meant to him. Not sneaking around, but pushing hard and fast. Patton believed in momentum too, but his was a storm, not a wave. He'd say, "Keep moving, don't stop," and his army would roll over anything in its path. A phrase that fits him is, "Expect the unexpected." His enemies never knew how fast he'd come or how hard he'd hit, even if he didn't trick them with fake tanks. Patton's power was in his speed and strength, not secrets. Patton was great at adapting, too. That's what improvisation means for him. In the Battle of the Bulge in 1944, the Germans surprised everyone with a big attack. Patton didn't panic. He turned his whole army around in the snow, marched through terrible weather, and smashed into the enemy. He didn't need bluffs. He used raw force. Logistics were his strength, too. He made sure his tanks had fuel and his men had food, even when moving fast. In France, he raced so quick that sometimes his supplies couldn't keep up, but he'd figure it out. He'd take enemy supplies or push his men harder. Patton's strategy was like a lion, charging straight at you, fearless and fierce. He didn't care if you saw him coming. He'd win anyway. Let's look closer at Rommel's tricks in Africa. In 1942, at Tobruk, he didn't just attack. He planned. He sent some tanks one way to distract the British, then hit from another side with his real force. That's deception at its best. His speed kept them guessing. Tanks zooming through the desert, kicking up sand, appearing where they shouldn't. He loved psychological warfare too. He'd spread rumors that he was everywhere, making the enemy nervous. His momentum carried him far, victory after victory, until supplies ran thin. Logistics were his weak spot sometimes. In 1942, at El Alamein, he lost because he couldn't get enough fuel or men. But even then he improvised, fighting smart until the end. Strike while the iron is hot was his rule. He hit fast, hit clever, and left the enemy spinning. Patton's charge in Sicily was a different beast. He landed on the island and said, "Go." His tanks didn't sneak. They roared. He broke through enemy lines in 48 hours because he didn't stop. That's momentum. Pure, unstoppable power. He didn't bluff. He didn't need to. His aggression was his weapon. In France, he kept that up, racing across the country in 1944. He'd adapt on the fly. If a bridge was down, he'd find another way. Logistics helped him here. His army had trucks and fuel ready. Expect the unexpected fit him, because no one thought he could move that fast. The Germans planned to slow him, but he'd crash through before they could blink. Patton didn't hide. He attacked, and he won. Rommel's battles in Africa were like a chess game. He'd move his pieces, tanks and men, carefully, then strike. At Gazala in 1942, he went around the enemy's strong line, hitting them from behind. His speed and deception shocked them. He'd use the desert itself, sandstorms and heat, to confuse. Psychological warfare was key. He'd make the British think he had endless tanks when he didn't. His momentum kept his men believing, even when things got hard. Logistics failed him later, but his improvisation shone. He'd turn captured trucks into weapons, keeping the fight alive. Patton's battles in Europe were more like a race. In the Bulge, he didn't trick anyone. He just ran faster. His aggression pushed through snow and mud. He adapted when plans broke, like finding new roads. Logistics kept him strong. His army was fed and fueled. Expect the unexpected was his edge. No one saw him coming so quick. Think about their styles side by side. Rommel's tanks in Africa danced. Fast, sly, unpredictable. He'd bluff with fake moves, then hit with real ones. His speed was his shield, his deception his sword. Patton's tanks in France charged, loud, bold, crushing. He didn't bluff. He smashed. His aggression was his sword, his momentum his shield. Rommel improvised with little, Patton with plenty. Logistics tripped Rommel up when supplies dried out. Patton thrived because he had them. Both struck while the iron was hot, but Rommel did it with a fox's grin, Patton with a lion's roar. Their strategies matched their hearts, one clever and quiet, one fierce and loud. Rommel and Patton faced off too, in Tunisia, 1943. Rommel's tricks met Patton's force. Rommel tried speed and deception, but Patton's aggression and supplies won. It wasn't their only clash, but it showed their styles head to head. Next, we'll see how their legacies grew, what they left behind after the war. Get ready for more. Part 6. Legacies. We've seen their battles, their lives, and their strategies. But what happened after? How do we remember Erwin Rommel and George Patton today? Their legacies, their lasting marks on history, are full of honor, myth, and tragedy. Let's start with Rommel. His story didn't end with victory. In 1944, as we heard, he was caught in a dangerous spot. Some German officers tried to kill Hitler with a bomb, and Rommel knew about it. The plan failed, and Hitler turned on him. Rommel wasn't the leader of the plot, but he didn't stop it either. Hitler gave him a terrible choice: die by poison or face a trial that would hurt his family. Rommel chose the poison. On October 14, 1944, he took a pill in a car with 2 officers and died quietly. Germany lied at first, saying he died from war wounds. It was a cover-up to protect Hitler's image. His death was a forced suicide, a tragedy that shocked those who knew the truth later. A phrase fits here: a fallen hero. Rommel didn't fall in battle, but in a darker way. Betrayed by the leader he once served. But that's not where Rommel's story ends. After the war, people looked at him again. They learned he wasn't just Hitler's general. He had doubts. He saw the war going wrong and wanted it to stop. Some say he hoped for peace, not more fighting. Because of this, his legacy changed. He became a symbol of redemption, someone who started on the wrong side but turned against it. Germans today see him as a man of honor, not just a soldier. His name isn't tied to Nazi crimes like others. Instead, he's remembered as the Desert Fox, who fought smart and cared for his men. There's a myth around him too, a story bigger than life. Books and films show him as a clever leader, not a villain. In his hometown, there's a memorial, and soldiers still study his battles. His influence lives on, a mix of tragedy and pride. Another phrase works: history is written by the victors. The winners shaped his tale, but Rommel's own choices made it special. Now let's move to Patton. His end was different, but just as surprising. After World War II ended in 1945, Patton didn't go home to rest. He stayed in Germany, helping rebuild. On December 9, 1945, he was riding in a car near Mannheim when it hit a truck. It wasn't a big crash, but Patton's neck broke. He went to a hospital, paralyzed, and fought to live. For 12 days, doctors tried to save him, but on December 21st, he slipped away. He was 60 years old. The man who faced tanks and bullets died in a simple accident. A tragedy no one saw coming. They buried him in Luxembourg, near soldiers who fell in the Battle of the Bulge. His grave is plain, but it draws people who want to honor him. A fallen hero fits him too. Not in battle, but in a quiet, unexpected way. Patton's legacy exploded after his death. He didn't fade into silence. He became a legend. In 1970, a movie called Patton hit the world. It showed him as old blood and guts, loud and fearless, leading with fire. The film won awards and made his name immortal. That word, immortal, means never forgotten, and Patton fits it. People see him as a symbol of American strength, a warrior who never backed down. His influence is huge. Soldiers today read his words like, "Accept the challenges so you can feel the exhilaration of victory." His myth grew too, larger than life. Some call him the greatest general ever, a man who turned war into an art. But there's tragedy in his story too. He didn't live to enjoy the peace he won. History is written by the victors, and Patton's side won, so his tale shines bright. Let's step back to Rommel's end. His forced suicide wasn't loud or glorious. He said goodbye to his wife and son, got in that car, and left the world behind. At first, people didn't know why. Germany said it was war injuries, but whispers spread. After the war, secret papers came out, showing the truth. Rommel's redemption grew from that. He wasn't perfect. He fought for Hitler early on, but he questioned him later. His honor came from leading his men well and facing tough choices. Today, in Germany, there's a museum for him in Herrlingen, near where he died. It tells his story: teacher's son, desert genius, fallen hero. His myth is quieter than Patton's, but strong. Soldiers learn his tricks, like using speed and fake tanks. His tragedy makes him human. His redemption makes him inspiring. Patton's last days were different. After the war, he was restless. He didn't like sitting still. He wanted more action. That car crash came out of nowhere. One minute he was fine, the next he couldn't move. In the hospital, he joked with nurses, but his body gave up. His death hit hard. Newspapers called it a loss for America. His burial in Luxembourg was simple, but soldiers came to salute. His legacy took off from there. That 1970 movie painted him bold, standing on tanks, shouting speeches. It's how we see him now. A man of honor, myth, and victory. His influence is loud. Military schools teach his charges, his drive. The tragedy of his crash adds a sad note, but his story soars above it. Think about their legacies together. Rommel's is complex. He started as Hitler's star, ended as his enemy. His forced death was a dark mark, but it gave him redemption. People visit his grave in Germany, quiet and thoughtful. His myth is the desert fox, clever and brave. Patton's legacy is simpler. He won. He died. he became a giant. His car crash was a twist no one expected, but it didn't dim his light. His grave in Luxembourg buzzes with visitors, soldiers, tourists, fans. His myth is old blood and guts, unstoppable and proud. Both left tragedy behind, Rommel's poison, Patton's wreck, but both found honor. Rommel's influence is in strategy, Patton's in spirit. History is written by the victors, and while Patton's side won, Rommel's tale got rewritten with respect. Rommel's mark is deep. In Africa, his name still echoes. Soldiers study Tobruk, El Alamein. His redemption makes him a hero who tried to fix a broken war. Patton's mark is wide. Sicily, France, the Bulge live in his shadow. His movie keeps him alive, a symbol of guts and glory. Both were fallen heroes, lost too soon. Their legacies mix myth and truth, tragedy and triumph. Next, we'll switch gears. Time to learn English with their stories. Get ready for some fun. Part 7. English Learning Focus. Now we're switching things up. It's time to learn English with the stories of Rommel and Patton. You've heard their battles and their lives. So let's use their words and actions to make your English stronger. We'll focus on 3 big things: past tense verbs, military terms, and leadership adjectives. Plus, we'll end with a fun quiz to test what you've learned. Don't worry, it's easy and exciting, and I'll guide you every step of the way. Let's start with past tense verbs. These are words that tell us what happened before, in the past. Rommel and Patton's stories are full of them, because their adventures already happened. Listen to this. Rommel led his tanks through the desert. That word led is past tense. It means he was the leader, and it's done. Or try this. Patton liberated Sicily in 48 hours. Liberated is past tense, too. It means he set the island free, back in 1943. These verbs help us tell stories, and you'll hear them a lot. Let's try more examples. Rommel devised a clever plan to win at Tobruk. Devised means he made or created something, and it's in the past. He did it in 1942, so we say devised, not devise. Here's one for Patton. He demanded perfection from his soldiers. Demanded is past tense. It means he asked for it strongly, and it happened during the war. These verbs are everywhere in their tales. Rommel ambushed the enemy in the desert. Ambushed means he attacked by surprise in the past. Patton pushed his army across France. Pushed means he moved them forward, back in 1944. See how easy it is? Past tense verbs like led, liberated, devised, demanded, ambushed, and pushed, bring their stories to life. They show action that's finished, and they're perfect for talking about history. Next, let's look at military terms. These are special words about war and fighting, and Rommel and Patton used them all the time. First up is strategy. Rommel had a great strategy in North Africa. He planned his moves to trick the enemy. Strategy means a smart way to win. Patton used strategy too, but his was about speed. Another word is front line. Rommel led from the front line. That means the place where the fighting happens. Patton was there too, right where the bullets flew. How about maneuver? Rommel's tanks did a maneuver to surprise the British. It means moving in a clever way. Patton's army maneuvered fast across Europe, charging ahead. These words, strategy, front line, maneuver, are big in war stories. They make you sound like a soldier when you use them. Here are more military terms to try. Logistics is about getting supplies, like food and fuel. Rommel struggled with logistics in the desert. He didn't always have enough. Patton was good at logistics, keeping his tanks ready. Then there's breakthrough. Patton made a breakthrough in Sicily. He broke the enemy's line and won fast. Rommel had breakthroughs too, like at Tobruk. One more. Morale. It means how strong your spirit is. Rommel kept his soldiers' morale high, even when they were tired. Patton did the same with his big speeches. So, strategy, front line, maneuver, logistics, breakthrough, morale. These words paint the picture of war. They're simple but powerful, and you can use them to talk about Rommel and Patton like an expert. Now, let's move to leadership adjectives. These are words that describe what kind of leaders they were. Rommel was decisive. He made quick choices and stuck to them. When he said, "Attack now," his men moved fast. Patton was decisive too. He didn't wait around. Another adjective is bold. Patton was bold. He charged into battle with no fear. Rommel was bold in his own way, taking risks with fake tanks. How about cunning? Rommel was cunning, like a fox, smart and tricky. Patton wasn't as cunning, but he had other strengths. Try charismatic. Patton was charismatic. His charm made soldiers love him. Rommel was quieter, but still inspiring. One more. Resilient. Rommel was resilient. He kept going even when things got hard. Patton was resilient too, fighting through snow and mud. Decisive, bold, cunning, charismatic, resilient. These adjectives show us who they were. Let's mix it all together. Rommel devised a cunning strategy and led from the front line. See? Past tense verbs, devised and led. with a leadership adjective, cunning, and a military term, front line. Patton demanded a bold breakthrough and kept morale high. There's demanded and kept for past tense, bold as an adjective, and breakthrough and morale as military terms. It's fun to play with these words. They make your English strong and let you tell stories like a pro. You can say, Rommel ambushed the enemy with a decisive maneuver, or Patton pushed his charismatic army through tough logistics. Every word fits their lives, and you're learning while you listen. Time for the interactive quiz. I'll say some of their famous quotes with a blank, and you fill it in. Pause the video, think, and say your answer out loud. Ready? First one. Rommel said, "In a man-to-man fight, the winner is the one with an extra round in his." What's the word? It's magazine. That's where bullets go in a gun. Next, Patton said, "Success is how high you when you hit bottom." What's the verb? It's bounce. He meant you rise up after falling. Here's another. Rommel's phrase. Fight, not hard. What's the missing word? It's smart. He wanted clever wins. Last one. Patton said, from the front. What's the verb? It's lead. He always went first. How did you do? If you got them all, great job. If not, listen again. They're easy once you know them. Let's practice a bit more. Past tense verbs. Rommel devised plans. Patton liberated towns. Military terms. Strategy won battles. Morale kept them strong. Leadership adjectives. Decisive leaders act fast. Bold ones take risks. Try this. Rommel led with a cunning strategy. Or this. Patton demanded a bold frontline attack. You can make your own sentences too. These words stick because they're tied to real stories. Rommel's fight smart, not hard shows his brain. Patton's lead from the front shows his guts. You're not just learning English, you're stepping into their world. So, what have we got? Past tense verbs like led and pushed tell the past. Military terms like strategy and logistics bring war to life. Leadership adjectives like bold and resilient paint their hearts. Practice them, and you'll talk about Rommel and Patton like you were there. Next, we'll wrap it all up. Who's your pick for the greatest? Get ready to choose. We've reached the end of our journey with Erwin Rommel and George Patton. What a ride it's been! We started with their greatest battles, Rommel winning at Tobruk with speed and tricks, Patton freeing Sicily in just 48 hours. Then we dug into their lives. Rommel, the teacher's son who became the desert fox, and Patton, the dyslexic dreamer who turned into old blood and guts. We saw how they led, Rommel with quiet strength, sharing his men's hardships, and Patton with loud fire, inspiring with speeches. Their strategies amazed us. Rommel's clever deception in the desert, Patton's bold charges across Europe, and their legacies, Rommel's tragic end and redemption as an anti-Nazi symbol, Patton's sudden death and immortal fame in film. Two incredible men, two incredible stories. So, who was World War II's greatest general? Rommel, the cunning fox, mastered the desert with his smart moves. He fooled enemies with fake tanks and kept his soldiers going, even when supplies ran low. But his story ended sadly, forced to die by the leader he once followed. Patton, the unstoppable storm, crashed through battles with pure power. He led from the front, pushed his men hard, and won big. But a car crash took him too soon. Both were brave, both were brilliant, and both left their mark. Who's your pick? Was it Rommel, with his quick mind and steady heart? Or Patton, with his fearless drive and big voice? Their tales show us what leadership can be, smart and strong in different ways. This isn't just about picking a winner. It's about what their stories mean to you. Rommel fought smart, not hard, and showed us how to think fast. Patton led from the front and taught us to bounce back when we fall. Maybe you like Rommel's calm way of winning, or maybe Patton's wild energy fires you up. Whoever you choose, their lives are full of lessons. They faced tough times, made tough calls, and became legends. So, tell me, what do you think? Who deserves the title? I want to hear your answer. Here's what you can do next. Comment below and say who you pick, Rommel or Patton, and why. Did Rommel's tricks win you over? Or did Patton's guts steal the show? Your voice matters. And if you loved this story, hit that subscribe button. We've got more thrilling tales coming your way. More heroes, more battles, more English to learn. Don't forget to like this video too. It keeps history alive and helps us share more with you. Every click counts. Rommel and Patton aren't just names in books. They're stories that inspire us today. Let's keep them going together. Before we go, let's sum it up one last time. Rommel, the cunning fox who ruled the desert, lost to tragedy, but rose again in memory. Patton, the unstoppable storm who conquered cities, fell to fate, but lives on forever. Two generals, one war, endless lessons. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. Your English got stronger, and you met two giants of history. So, comment your pick, subscribe for more, and like to keep the story alive. Who's your greatest general? I can't wait to find out.